All right, thank you all and welcome for joining us today. This virtual event is one of many connected to the Campus Community Book Project under the Office of Campus Community Relations. Before we begin, we should take a moment to acknowledge the land on which we are gathered. For thousands of years, this land has been the home of Patwin people. Today, there are 3 federally recognized Patwin tribes, the Kachil-Dihi Band of Wintun Indians of the Calusa Indian Community, Quetzal-Dihi Wintun Nation, and the Yocha-Dihi Wintun Nation. The Patwin people have remained committed to the stewardship of this land over many centuries. It has been cherished and protected as elders have instructed the young through generations. We are honored and grateful to be here today on their traditional lands. The UC Davis Campus Community Book Project promotes dialogue and builds community by encouraging diverse members of the campus and surrounding communities to read the same book and attend related events. The book project is a signature initiative of the Office of Campus Community Relations since 2002 and advances the mission to improve the campus climate and community relations, to foster diversity and to promote equity and inclusiveness. For this year, in its 20th year, the book project in 2021-2022 focuses on the theme of social justice in practice and features How to Be an Anti-Racist by Dr. Ibram X. Kendi. The theme and selection are supported by a year-long program of lectures, workshops, book discussions, film screenings, exhibits, performances, and more. The program culminates with the author visit coming to UC Davis on Thursday, March the 31st, 2022 to speak at the Mandavi Center for the Performing Arts. And for more information about the book project program, please visit the website where you can find up-to-date event information, registration links, and other resources. The Campus Community Book Project welcomes your involvement, students, staff, faculty, and community members in selecting the book project, featuring title and in planning its annual program. So if you are interested in being part of this wonderful committee, please send us an email. More information will be at the end of our program today. So with that, I will turn it over to my co-host.
Good afternoon, members of our cherished community, lovers of poetry, pursuers of social justice. My name is Agnes Stark. I'm a continuing lecturer in the University Writing Program, and my co-host is Catherine Barpana, Interim Director of the Strategic Asian and Pacific Islander Retention Initiative. On behalf of our departments, the Campus Community Book Project, the Cross-Cultural Center, and the LGBTQIA Resource Center, and the Menete Shrem Museum, we are so honored and proud today to bring you 2 powerful poets, Dr. Ayodele Nzinga and Tanaya Winder. Both of these poets are educators, community leaders, writers, performers, activists, and healers. Their voices are beautiful, intellectual, and powerful. For our program today, first Dr. Nzinga will perform and speak, followed by a 5-minute intermission, then Tanaya will perform and speak. Afterwards, our poets will answer questions from the audience. If you have a question during the event, please feel free to write your question in the Q&A feature on your screen. I am honored to introduce Dr. Nzinga, Poet Laureate of Oakland, whose poems relay the realities of place and marginalized peoples. She is a deep thinker and chronicler of truths. Through her leadership in theater, she created the Lower Bottom Players, the oldest Black theater company in Oakland, for which she has written, directed, acted, and empowered others to tell their stories. Dr. Nzinga is a community activist healer. She gives the community a voice and raises her own voice in poetry and social justice. She is an Oakland treasure, a cultural icon. We welcome you, Dr. Nzinga. You're muted, Dr. Nzinga.
After I promised that wouldn't happen. Okay, I am so happy to be here. So the book, How to Be Anti-Racist, and poetry, that has a relationship between truth and power. And then as a human being, as I sit before you, I am a Black woman with a large, square-framed, really fly lens glasses, large pink turban, and a Basquiat t-shirt. And I'm also the daughter of Ernestine, the granddaughter of Nettie, the great-granddaughter of Constance Oil. And then I lose my lineage, like a lot of North American Africans. It's that little interruption of the creation of the largest graveyard in the world, the transatlantic misfortune that interrupted my lineage. The work that I brought to share with you today circles around those themes, loosely around the fact that we are supposedly in Black History Month, although Black history is made 365 days a year and is integral to American and world history. But more in the context of thinking about how to be anti-race, how to be anti-racist, and the intersections between racism, capitalism, and class. And in this case, art, and in particular, literature, the spoken word, how it can interrogate those systems, inspire thought outside of those systems, hopefully pull together the complex thread of so-called white supremacy and white hubris, and how it's informed by capitalism and fed by racism. So I bought work from a book called The Horse Eaters, which is a bit of an origin story, and work from a book called Sorrowland Oracle, and then some new work. And based upon what I shared and how much time is possibly left, that will constitute my presentation. And here we go. This piece is from The Horse Eaters, and it's called The Ballad of the Horse Eaters. Singing in captivity is not a sign of happy slaves, nor is dancing, which may occur almost anywhere. Grace in the storm may be hard to understand, may not always be seen as divinity holding hands with resilience. What do you know about laying burdens down, sitting them next to you in a dark place, losing their weight to dance your story, sing it to a starless sky with no moon in language you thought you had forgotten, to supplicate yourself to joy, thanking the Orisha for strong backs, bottomless souls, sweetened with gratitude, knowing the burden weighs the same, may have grown in your absence, but you are stronger now. Singing while captive does not imply happy slaves, nor does dancing, which may occur almost anywhere. Morning. We grew out of the soil from ancient coastal cities with music in their names. We have forgotten the names of the cities the meaning of the rhythms. We have traversed the unknown, unwillingly eaten by a thing we would come to know, have names for. That would come later, after we learn to swim without water, how to fly without wings, how to hold our breath for centuries, praying for the morning before suffering led us to imagine locomotion, resurrection after dying, out of the known to the no thing, to boldly conjure life in death's dank belly, burning like forgotten stars in the night. Claim the body, dig the hole in the morning, gone. Now spooked, taken, took, made Holy Ghost, invisible, walk without legs, climb by instinct, reclaiming, recreating, making new out of scraps of sacred memory, necessity, mothering, survival, written in the blood, inking the story of becoming, to overcome, still overcoming, standing on broken things that struggle to leave enough to stand on, giving all and all to the all and all of going forward, knee deep in nightmares, bloody leaves, successions of shallow graves without markers, walking on water in a storm, roaring through centuries, trying to make it to the morning. So those poems were from The Horse Eater. I'm gonna read some poems from Sorrowland Oracle. Sorrowland Oracle wants to think about the totality of the devastation of the sins of systemic oppression and capitalism in relation to how it impinges upon one's ability to be fully human. All of this work is from a super Black lens of a human being. This piece is called 99 Swang. 99 sheep woke up, came in from the toxic fields in search of a song full of tick bites, wolves against no walls on a come up, calling bluffs, tea parties full of donkeys and elephants. 99 sheep infiltrated, media affiliated, 99 sheep awake from a long, slow dance, a tango with existence, insistent on voicing the relevant, trying to remember the song, seeking the face of God in small footprints and elevated empathy. 99 sheep sitting by the last tree near a polluted sea under a dirt-colored sky, listening for the dust, wanting to know what it knows, trying to remember the song, undoing, unlearning, unwilling to continue understanding, overstanding imminent, not willing to stand under falling skies. While a woman in white cried and the poet hypothesized and the band don't miss a beat. Now, you know this is a dime. See you swang, see you swang. Has anybody seen my song? Maybe too late. Did we stay too long? Swang, pendulum. Did we stay too long? Sun's set. Aquarius on the dawn, spring forward for me. Spring unsealed fates. The poor are getting poorer. Greedy getting greater. The poor stand in line after line, opening up store doors, never getting enough. 99 sheep want more. See them stomping on what held them down before, but still can't get enough. Camping on Wall Street, City Plaza, and outside retail stores. Open, open, we want more. Shiny shit, more lies, more open eyes, more the sheep to realize that in real life, the winners live and the losers die and no one testifies. Watch it swang, watch it swang. Does the movement mean anything? Or is it just the latest dance as the sun sets in Babylon? Somebody wake Nero, tell him it's time to go. Are they selling humanity in the store? Will we find it by the fire as the sun sets? Will the truth finally feel safe in the open or remain hidden behind the lies? Is there a final truth big enough to sing us human, so far from the garden, driven by the wheel? Who's driving the wheel? Who stole my song? I know I should be singing. Wake me up. 99 sheep, still trusting polytricksters, take their riddling and march, hoping for brighter tomorrows. Should have remembered we, the people. We invented the wheel. We let them drive it. Wolves at our table, driving the wheel. 99 marching sheep say they long to be free. Sorrowland rebellion. Who owns this army? Who owns this revolt? Who are these sheep? Pharaoh's army watches, barely distracted from setting fires, burning forests, designer king and drug making. God build us a better reality show. They just fake it. War waging, culture caging, world carnage for cash consumption, dollars over you, management of everything. No social medicine. Let them die. Lesser than to kill, lock up, case, manage, disconnect, foreclose, evict, leave them without a song, waiting to go, raid, disperse, reassemble, sheep movement. One planet occupado in search of a song, a place for everything. How things get so out of place? Wolf movement. Disrupt tyranny, cry the sheep. Stay in your lane, reply the tyrants. At the end of a paradigm, sheep remembering the wheel. Sheep want the wolves out of the circle, want to slow down the wheel, want to remember, beginning to want to overstand. What they ought to know, should never have forgotten, dirt and dust lessons, leaping backwards with authority, never should have forgot, remembering the days before the wheel and the day we let a wolf come to dinner, woke up sheared, fleeced, out to sea, wrapped in red velvet, surfing the internet, looking for the wave of tomorrow. They fenced the Wild West. Young men get on a ship, the new frontiers, the front line, Middle East, Africa, make us a market. We got shiny shit for sale, made in Indonesia. 99 sheep woke up and marched like shearlings, worried about tomorrow, confused about yesterday, looking for the wheel, got to take it back. 99 sheep finally see, maybe eligible for freedom, singing, want a dialogue, turned off the TV, repurposed Twitter, signed out of Facebook, went into deep sleeper status, went underground, came out the closet, became diverse, longed for polarity, leaderless, leaderful, messy, like democracy, confused, like a slaughter yard. Sheep won't drink the water, turned off the news and became the lead story. Revolution televised from Cairo to Oakland, from the foothills and in the flatlands. Fall fell on sheep, springing forward. Spring around the world, the day of the lamb, song heard round the world, lamb rising, Sorrowland rebellion, arrested, encamped, blindfolds off, still marching blind, in need of a end game, occupied, funky, dog shit, hay and tents, Wall Street, Agawa Plaza, San Jose, Berkeley, Sebastopol, Boston, Denver, campuses, Washington, the state of the states restated by sheep on a wolf hunt. No time for a blue-blooded tea party. Invitation to rebellion, Sorrowland rebellion, Sorrowland spring, day of the sheep. Sheep take the street, but can they take the day? Dignity ain't free. Anarchists, Scientologists, barkeepers, barbers, free-ranging, candle-making, bakers, technologists, beekeepers, Buddhists and Baptists, organic, green, unemployed, underrepresented, under-articulated, disenfranchised, othered, unimpressed North Americans, one paycheck away from it all falling down, living the shadows of their lives after it fell down, broke on the hill, crashed into the abandoned American dream. Wolf's offer permits. How civil can civil unrest be? Tired of being run over by the wheel, would by American, but I ain't got no money, ain't got no job, ain't got no house, ain't nothing made in America no more anyway. We export broken dreams. 99% got broken lives out of warranty, sold with balloon payments, and it's past due, got a lien on it, in danger of repossession. We ain't got enough faith to keep dancing. 99 sheep, and the band don't miss a beat. Chronic homelessness as a front line, absurd in America. Are the displaced embraced? Too poor for the 99. Wait one more payday, living a foreclosure away. Are they crazy before they lose their houses? Invisible now. 99, looking at your real face. Sheep is sheep. Or would you rather be a wolf? Ticks up against no walls. That's the veteran, how it plays on a slow day after your killing's done. You're just another one of the 99. They told us Jesus was with them in search of the one. But I remember the camel's eye and wolves lie. Divine dope, duplicity, and sheep. Miles to go. Awake now. Don't sleep. Dawn might come, revealing paradigms broken like running yokes, thrown off by sheep standing. We are the people. Hear us singing. We are the people. This piece is called The Money Changers. Rich men threading needle eyes, rent dreams of heaven to the poor, serve with a side of by and by. The meek will inherit dust and pay a healthy inheritance tax. Capitalism eats its young. Mucho money for weapons, minds lie fallow. So want, reap, need, no house, no food, no coat, and baby, it's cold out here. No bootstraps to pull up, no boots, no doctors, no place to grow. Dreams die starved, and baby, it's cold in a deficit soul. Too poor to live, but can't afford to die. They took the land, and those seeds won't produce. They took what was underneath the land. Minerals ain't got no rights. Water ain't free. They took the air over the land. Then they sent my job to Indonesia. I can't afford pride, but I will work for food. We'll work. They murdered Detroit. Good for Ford, good for the USA. That's what they used to say. Right before the factories closed. Don't need your service no more. Industry moved overseas. Don't lie or sit here. Gated communities, locked churches, closed schools, hospitals, soup kitchens, welfare rolls, closed, bankrupt, closed, foreclosed, fraudulent. Money may be an illusion, but the need is real. Hunger kills more people than bullets. Desperation loads guns. Can't afford to care. Got to survive. Buys dog food for dinner. Can't afford medicine. Lives in a box by the police station. Can't afford justice. Can't pay for care. Distracted by survival. Too tired to resist. No gas money. No car, no suit for the interview, no extra, never enough, need, want, and need. Death is an exit. Too poor to die. We'll work for dignity. No jobs. Jobs left. Rich got richer, poor got poorer. Too poor to die. We drank the tears, thirsty and hungry. Selling back their own water, hungry. It's hell here. We'll work. The bank took the house. Furlough days, furloughs from pay. Rent too damn high. Let your ass down and die. Too poor. Sell a kidney, a lung. Rent your womb. Put tomorrow on layaway. Charge a life. We'll work. They told us there was milk and honey. We'll work for either one. We'll follow wolves. We'll be sheep. We'll sin to eat. to pay the mortgage. We'll work. We'll kill other hungry sheep. The night has farther to fall before day breaks. This piece is called A Song for Dirt and Water. This is a song for dirt and water, stardust and tears, a dark cosmic prayer for redemption. Help us forget what we never needed to know. Someone beat the drum slowly, find the road. We are ready to go. Must there be blood, plagues, and war? How much does it cost to ignore drunken children pissing in the ocean while Nero fiddles? Haven't we been here before? This is a song for dirt and water, stardusted complexity and tears. God gave orders, but we can't remember. Do you see what I see? From chaos, one would expect divine order. On the eve of an apocalypse, this is a song for dirt and water. Ain't we been here before? Thought we swore we never passed this way again. Sounds of drums, women crying, the smell of death, greedy men lying. How much is a mountain worth if it's the only one? Someone said, suns set, moons rise. We suffer because we forget. Dust to dust, 2/3 water. Nature's law is divine order flowing from chaos. God's breath in all of us, holding hands on the precipice, drunk on arrogance, stupid enough to jump. Plugged in, gone, virtually viral. We order, they deliver. Our lives are scars. What if nature decides to heal? This is a song for dirt, water. Sing loudly while we're here. This piece is called Race. My granny said, you will lie in the pit you dig for an other. How you sleep? Here in the pit, where we lie side by side in the same open grave, pitted against one another, Cain and Abel forever. How you sleep? Has your God been watching? Do you pray with the same mouth that sucked at my great-great-great-grandma's bloody tears? Hollered, so the American, nigger, kike, spick, wop, chink, spook, slant, beaner, dago, sand nigger, camel jockey, jungle bunny, jigaboo. How you sleep? Spooked. Do you dream brown hands? Wake up sweating, vowing to kill them all so you can breathe with no fear of retribution. Do you dream of severed breast, broken bodies? Are you greedy in your sleep? How you sleep? With your biracial grandchildren waiting for your death. The brown-eyed ones that are ashamed of you. How will you answer God when he asks you about his children? Do you dream of burning crosses, bodies flopping, behind trucks, dogs at throats, shooting first and yelling, "Stop!" over dead bodies. Corpses swaying from trees, the smell of burning genitalia. How you sleep? Do you ever fear drowning in oceans of grief crafted by you? Are you fettered by your fictions? What if we are human? What will your God say? How you sleep? Do your sins trail you like a caravan of bodies chained to one another? Full coffins, full coffers, empty souls, futile lives. Afraid of the dark, more afraid of the light, forever fearing the morning after, a single shoe falling and the sound of my laughter. How you sleep? When the chatter from the boneyard is deafening. How you sleep? On the edge of an open grave. How you sleep? This is from some new work. This first piece is called a Bayonet Boogie. I live in the room where they sharpen bayonets. Every life, every hand dedicated to the target, to the task. Over 400 years of dark night, still not able to afford sun or truly cold ice. Crossovers are not ascensions. Born on a battlefield, not conscripted, jumped in. Babies in track shoes aren't metaphors. They're rehearsals. Multiple choice doesn't make choosing your own funeral costume a carefree occupation. You see, the job is stay alive, and there is no small print included about quality. Out here calling out Jesus and Tyrone, sharpening weapons, barehanded, blood everywhere. Saltwater libations, new ancestors daily. See, the dyeing business, well, the dyeing business is huge and it's growing. Now, speaking of disturbing the peace, I'm gonna need you to back up a little bit. Break wide. Those are my ghosts. And they got all access passes. And yes, it's true. They do write a lot of my material. And yes, I have thought about leaving this ritual, but there are no bloodless schools. Blood in, blood out. So spin that wheel there. We still playing here. This piece is called, What's the Story of a Stolen Tree in a Hostile Land? Sometimes I got to lean back and let my soul hang out the back of my neck. I be holding the pain at the top of my throat. I let it roll along like marbles with razors. They be rolling around while the wind whistle through that hole my soul hanging from. My heart beat like a hollow drum. Extra pain. Ocean eye. God's howling all around my toes. Nat Turner, straight razors, and desert eagles live in my pocket. If I come undone, there might not be no rewinding. The movie will just have to play. Once the cards are dealt, dancing, that'd be a necessity. Bullet fragments and demon parts melted in the furniture for rooms and asylums, leaving only children to carry the banner forward. All the old heads will move underground, where music and wisdom are found. Liberty got lost about 2 blocks past the graveyard, you know, where they hold a world fair. I dream this different. And I've struggled to live it the way it wrote itself. See, survival is easy if you let it be all the stars. You can smile with teeth. But if you imagine galaxies and count the unnamed somersaulting in distant peripheries, a smile avoids your eyes. I no longer carry bubble gum or vice. Like cola is hot ice. Hey, look, if these ain't your stories, then I'm gonna need you to keep my name up out your mouth, because we don't code switch in this house. It's all straight razors and last chances is ghosts in all the corners, recycling grandma's prayers. We up in here writing spells for snatching blackbirds off the wire. We got them simmering slow in inherited cast iron pots. We crowded here. This was a narrow lane. It's mostly all uphill. Everybody don't hear the drum. Be quiet. This is church. Spin that wheel. We praying here. We need new shapes to spell this way to God. Ain't talking about no statistics, Grammys, averages, charts, Oscars, bounce, smash, fool's gold, dance on it, shimmy. Ain't no exits offered. And not all the doors open. Ain't but so many guys, you got to be ready. Sometimes they knock twice, sometimes not at all. They be down by the river. If you go take a candle, so somebody else could follow that light. You gotta let go to rise, catch some stars, riders in the storm. Too long, the man that you meet him on the road by the graveyard near the ocean. I'm gonna need you to move your hands because we still praying here. Breadcrumbs, ropes, and maps don't make themselves. Say praying grannies. So spin that wheel. We still playing here. I raise you grandma's hands and a pot of collard greens against that smelting pot in your imagination. I'm gonna need you to slow down that burning. Take your hands up off my song. I'm gonna brand you. The ocean may demand recompense. Transatlantic war criminals still whisper harsh everything's in Cotton's ears. My eyes rarely smile. Hands move, weaving my prayers for the corners of tomorrow, conjuring a shape to hold us as we unmake, unknow, and write some new baptismal songs. Got us hanging from the windows as we unlock some of these doors. I think it's time we turn in our cards. I'm gonna leave them wooden nickels on the table. I remember I dreamed this different. Bloody tears, smiles and similes. Breathe. We still dreaming here. I have never been able to afford not to be magic. Birth. It was a trick question. even as an infant, odds needed defying. I'm a dead woman's dream. And if you're lucky, you might be too. But luck requires memory. It gets delivered in separate packages. And it might get delivered to your enemies if you forget to remember. So I'm going to end there and hopefully dedicate a couple of minutes back to the question process. I hope you enjoyed the work. I enjoyed sharing it with you very, very much. And I look forward to the rest of the program that's planned to today. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Nzinga. We will now take a 5-minute break. See you in 5 minutes.
All right, welcome back everyone, and thank you for taking that short break and returning. We are so honored that our good friend Tanaya Winder is here to speak with us today. Tanaya is an educator, activist, and multifaceted artist from an intertribal lineage of Southern Ute, Pyramid Lake Paiute, and Diné and Duckwater Shoshone nations. I hope I pronounced all of those correctly. Her poems and her songs spread the realities of marginalized peoples and also promote self-realization through self-love and love of community. Tanaya is a director of the University of Colorado's Upward Bound program, where she serves our precious next generation. Tanaya's work embodies social justice activism and healing trauma through art. She empowers youth and women and advocates for mental wellness. Please join me in welcoming Tanaya.
Hi, good evening, everyone. I'm so honored to be able to be here and share space with you all. Normally, the way I like to introduce myself is just by answering, questions like, who am I? What do I do? Why do I do it? And the who I am always has to do with where I come from, which includes, my family, my lineage. I always acknowledge my grandmothers on all of my sides, just to bring them into the room with me, to remind myself and all of us, we're never alone. We can always call our ancestors to join us. And I often think of them, especially my grandmothers, because, I wouldn't be here today if it weren't for them. And I always acknowledge, my great grandmother from the Pyramid Lake Paiute Reservation, and her son, my grandfather, who is a cattle rancher in Pyramid Lake. And, he taught me just a lot. He taught me about the importance of day and not wasting daylight. I always saw him working and doing what he could to provide for his family. And I feel like he really taught me the importance of hard work. And my maternal grandmother, who he met, she was Duckwater Shoshone, and she was taken from her reservation when she was about 8 years old and taken to a residential boarding school, a Stewart Indian boarding school. And I often think of my grandmother because, for me, someone who grew up on a reservation, a small town, I just remember the culture shock I felt going to big cities and having to learn to navigate all of these different systems, and being afraid, even though we have modern technology today, I could literally pull up Google Maps and figure out where I'm going. But I still have that internalized fear. But my grandmother was so brave, she was so brave because she had to be, she was taken from her home and just forced to work for, white people, cleaning, taking care of their children, and then immediately going to the city for job placements after. And I often think of her because I feel like, one response to trauma is when you see just the silver linings in things, you have that positive attitude, again, because you had to survive. I feel like that's something I've inherited from her. I always, when I would ask her about boarding school, she wouldn't tell me any of the horrible things that we know happen in these places to assimilate us. And she would always just tell me this memory of her winning this talent show contest singing Blue Moon. And she'd be so happy telling that story, singing and dancing. And I often think of her anytime I get to share my voice in any capacity, because I got that voice from her. And I used to tell her when she was still alive, I want to write my next book about you. And she would say, why don't you write about your grandpa? He's the one who went to school. He's the one who was educated. He's the one, who provided financially for the family. And I had to remind her, our worth doesn't come down to being educated. Our worth isn't how much money we make. Yes, get our education because we deserve that and we need that to dismantle things. And yes, know your worth and ask for what you should get paid for when you enter the workforce or if you're in the workforce. But those things don't define your worth as a person, as a human being. And so I would tell my grandmother, I want to write about you because you survived. You're the reason we're all still here. And even though you grew up without your parents, without somebody teaching you love and nurturing you in that way, you still became the most loving, nurturing person. And her love continues to transcend. Her radical revolutionary love passes on to me and the youth I work with. And so I've always, just want to acknowledge my grandmother and my mom that came from my grandmother and grandpa. And one of the things that, my mother has taught me, just so many different things, but just one of the things is she always talks about words being seeds, and that we have to be careful of the words we say and even think about other people, because you don't know what kind of seed you're planting. And I say this to anybody, whether I'm like speaking to kindergartners, to elders, just to remind us that our words are seeds. They have this power. And that's why we shouldn't, tell somebody, especially like high schoolers growing up, like you shouldn't tell somebody they're stupid or they're ugly, because we don't know what kind of seed we're planting. It's going to take life in someone's life, take root in somebody's life. And that's why it's important not to bully ourselves, not to say, I don't deserve that opportunity. And maybe we don't even say it. Maybe we self-sabotage and we don't apply for something or try for something because we think we're not good enough. But we don't want to plant those seeds in ourselves either. And that's something my mom always shares with me. And I think it also comes from her parents, growing up on a ranch, gardening, just the way they learned to garden. And, why I think I write and tell stories, like just trying to plant my own seeds. And so with that in mind, I'm going to start with a poem. I always start with this poem. It's from my book, Words Like Love. And this is a poem in honor of my grandmother, who I was talking about. When she was still alive, I was always trying to learn Shoshone words from her. And when you write sometimes and you're having an experience, sometimes something happens where you're just like, I know I'm going to write about this one day. And I remember asking my grandmother how to say certain phrases, where are you going? Take me with you. Can I come with you? Because I was processing a grief from losing somebody else before. And those were questions my grief was wanting to ask, why can't I go with you? Take me with you. And there were such hard phrases to say. And then I said, because I write about love, I said, well, how do I say I love you? And it was the easiest phrase to say. And so I turned it into a poem. So this poem is called Learning to Say I Love You. My favorite conversations are with my grandmother while she teaches me words in Indian. And she says, I ask, how do you say, where did you go? And where are you going? Questions that layer my tongue in ash, reminding me of fire, the taste. Each time I speak, the slow burn of every loss I have witnessed cracks my lips. Go and going, axe singed into my bones. So I ask, teach me, I'm coming with you. So it sits rock heavy in my mouth because my tongue is at war with history. Boarding school, kill the Indian, save the man, acts of colonization, strain my pronunciation when I want to say, take me with you. It dissolves. Before I can stomach the sweetness of language hours, I am losing. I am lost, lodged somewhere in my throat between decades of broken syllables. Teach me how to reach the ones who are born already running. Teach me how to talk to the ones who need it most. Dear universe, gift me words that linger softly, like dusk. There must be a phrase to contain wherever you go, whether or not you know where you've been or where you are going. And so the next poem I'm going to read has to deal with that concept, of go and going and being taken. When my grandmother and so many Indigenous relatives were taken from their reservations and their communities and put into these boarding schools, these residential schools. You know, that act of extraction is something that is still happening today. You know, when we're extracting oil and resources from the land, when we're, you know, BIPOC women, girls, like we still are missing, we still get taken, we still get stolen. And just that in and of itself, you know, just thinking about it, how it dates back and continues on. And, you know, a few years ago, actually maybe more like a decade ago, I was working with a middle school on a reservation in Minnesota, and it'd been maybe my second time coming back, working with different age ranges. And, you know, in one of those workshops, and I've always had such powerful experiences visiting this community. One of it is, you know, when I said, like, what's my why? Like, why do I do what I do? I remember visiting that school the first time, and it was my first time having worked with students that young, that little. And I remembered saying, okay, well, next time I come, I'll have something written for you all. What should I write about? And this young boy came up to me at lunchtime and he gave me this note, and it says, can you write about somebody going through a tough time, and that by the end, everything will be all right? Thanks, that would mean a lot. And I still have that note. I keep it in this little Ziploc bag to remind me, you know, like the youth and those who come after are the reason why I do what I do, because isn't that something we all want? You know, we all know pain, we all go through tough times. And at the end, we want to know and have hope that everything will be all right. And so the next time I returned to this school, like the next year, I was working with just the Indigenous girls. And one of my like favorite writing prompts I give just to kick things off is I say, if you could have any superhero power, what would it be and why? And it's fun, you know, especially sometimes I've had people say they would heal people, or, you know, mind reading, all these different things. But this was the first time every single girl had said invisibility. And it just hit me on so many different levels, right? Like, we all know it's hard being in high school. It's hard growing up, especially now with social media. You make a mistake, it's captured, everybody sees it. You know, you want to be invisible. And in a world that already makes so many of us invisible. And I just thought how much that hurt, you know, because we all want to be seen for who we are, for our spirits, for the gifts that we were born with, that we're meant to, you know, birth into this world, and to want to be invisible, because it's, you know, we all know too well how dangerous it is to be seen. And I thought about it in the context of murdered and missing Indigenous women as well. So I ended up writing this poem based on those experiences. And it's called Love Lessons in a Time of Settler Colonialism. And it has this epigraph by this First Nations poet, activist, artist. And the epigraph reads, I am not murdered and I am not missing, but parts of me have been disappeared. They too know all too well that some cracks were built just for us to fall through. We live in a world that tries to steal spirits each day. They steal ours by taking us away from industrial schools to forced assimilation. Genocide means removal of those who birth nations. Our living threatens. Colonization has been choking us for generations. I tell my girls, they are vessels of spirit. Air to lungs expanding. This world cannot breathe without us. There are days I wish I didn't have to teach these lessons, but as an Indigenous woman, silence is deadening. There is danger in being seen. Our bodies are targets marked for violence. We carry the earth's Me Too inside us. A howling wind, our mothers and their mothers swallowed these bullets long ago. The voices ricochet. I wish I were invisible. I wish I were invisible. I wish echoes in my eardrums. We know what it's like to live in fear. Colonialism's bullet sits cocked, waiting behind a finger on trigger. We breathe and speak and sing for survival. We carve out in lines. We write. I know joy. I know pain. I know love. I know love. I know lessons we've carried throughout time. Should I go missing? Don't stop searching. Drag every river until it turns red, and the waters of our names stretch a flood so wide it catches everything. And we find each other, whole and sacred, alive and breathing and breathing and breathing. So this next poem I'm going to read is a bit of a turn. I've spent a lot of my writing about my sisters or Indigenous women and the things that, you know, we've had to survive and go through. Actually, I'm going to read one that has to do with that first. And I feel like for me, you know, part of this too, in learning how to use our art, how to activate our voices, it's, you know, part of it is self-care too, you know, because you can give so much and give so much. If you don't balance it out, you can become, I don't know, drained, resentful. You can get sick, all of those different things. And for me, I felt like I'd spent so much of my life just giving that I literally felt like I was, you know, as an Indigenous woman tied to Mother Earth, that I am connected to the earth. I felt that I was this earth and dirt that people started planting themselves in to find their own healing. And it just felt so extractive, and it wasn't that balanced. And I felt like Indigenous men in particular were using me as this grounding factor, and that it was out of balance. Like it could happen in a different way, but it just felt like it was just pulling so much out of me. And when those things happen for me, I often just find my healing and process all my stuff through writing. So that's where this poem came about. And it's called Like Any Good Indian Woman. Like any good Indian woman, I pull my brothers from words, stupid engine shot like bullets. When people ask why my brothers hated school, I say, the spirit remembers what it's like to be left behind when America took children from homes, displaced families with rupture, ripping a child's hand from a mother's to put them in boarding school buildings. My brothers are mourning a loss they try to fix in finding home in another person. So they travel from reservation to city singing blues and 49 songs about love. I pull my brothers from cars named after Indians, Navajo, Cherokee, and Tacoma. On a danger-destined road, my brothers are born longing for a way back from relocation and long walks across miles and miles and miles of removal. My brothers search for themselves in unhealthy addictions disguised as makeshift bandages. I pull my brothers from bottles they think answers might be hidden at the bottom of. My brothers stumble through back alleys looking for a love and laughter that was stolen from them like the land. And when their brown bodies try to find healing and love, other brown bodies cringe at their touch because, like any good Indian woman, our bodies are connected to an earth still being raped by the pipelines forcibly laid down inside all we hold sacred. And my brothers hold on to their colonial emotional baggage so tightly they think it's gravity. So I pull my brothers from oceans, believing they deserve the hurt so much they nearly drown themselves in it. And sometimes my brothers knife ancestral grieving onto their wrists, slits to remember that the only time we are ever red-skinned is when blood flows from the open wounds America knifed onto our brown skin. Self-love, apply pressure. I pull my brothers from ashes. America tried to burn us, not knowing we were already flame. And these will be the stories I tell my grandchildren when one day they ask me why being a good Indian woman means we burn like phoenix, repeatedly pulling our brothers. And so in that vein of processing and also holding compassion and holding empathy for all the things that our Indigenous brothers have had to go through. As a woman, I feel like I've been more encouraged to love, to be tender, to express myself, to feel my feelings. And a lot of our men have been told the opposite, as we all know, like man up or men don't cry. And I feel like a lot of our brothers are actually the most sensitive, and they haven't had an outlet for those things. And so I've tried to I've just thought about a lot of my brothers and those I know and hold dear when writing some of these poems and the things that people struggle with. And so this next poem is called Becoming a Ghost. And sometimes I try to I guess I don't know if it's hiding it, but just putting little snippets of things in poems, that poetic moment. And in this one, the character in the poem talks about the first time drinking alcohol. And that's actually based off my true experience. I used to want to be someone who never drank because for me, I was raised to believe that it wasn't meant for our people. And I wanted to be this cool auntie grandma one day being like, you kids, I never drank, but life happens. And I remember one time going to communion with my great grandmother and just sitting up there waiting for her. I'd already had my little body of Christ, and the preacher just poured wine in my mouth, and it just tasted so awful. And I must have been 6 or 7 or 8. And I just had this recollection maybe 2 years ago, wow, that was the first time I drank, and it was forced on me by the church, and just thinking about the history of church and the harm that has done Indigenous people. So I ended up putting that in this poem, and it's called Becoming a Ghost. Ask me about the time my brother ran towards the sun. Arms outstretched, his shadow chased him from corner store to church, where he offered himself in pieces. Ask me about the time my brother disappeared. At 16, tossed his heartstrings over telephone wire, dangling for all the res dogs to feed on. Bit by bit, the world took chunks of my brother's flesh. Ask me about the first time we drowned in history. 8 years old, during communion, we ate the body of Christ with palms wide open, not expecting wine to be poured into our mouths. The bitterness buried itself in my tongue, and my brother never quite lost his thirst for blood or vanishing for more days than a shadow could hold. Ask me if I've ever had to use bottle caps as breadcrumbs to help my brother find his way back home. He never could tell the taste between a scar and its wounding, an angel or demon. Ask me if I can still hear his exhaled prayers. I am still waiting to be found. To be found, tell me why there is nothing more holy than becoming a ghost. And so this next poem I'm going to share, I actually wrote in my grief, and I hadn't written for such a long time. I think that's part of the balance too, you spend a lot of time, for me and in my writing, if I spend so much time giving readings or performing, that's my energy being exchanged in a different way. And the older I get, just realizing how do I harness that energy, and have that balance. When I'm giving away with reading or performing, making sure I balance it with keeping some of it for myself, to make that time to write and that space to write, because it's a different kind of draining to time travel in a way. You're revisiting different things, and you're thinking about how it's going to help people, how they're going to interpret it, how you want to use the right words to trigger the right emotions and memories. And I had gone so long without writing, and I was approached with this opportunity to write for this publication. And I also want to get out of that habit where I'm not always just writing for something, but for myself. But anyway, this poem came to me in that, I guess, assignment. And I was thinking about just growing up, and before there were things like Spotify or before music on the phone, we had these CDs, and my aunt had this real rugged res car, and it didn't have a tape deck or anything like that. So we had to carry around this boom box in the car to play music, and just the way music triggers me back to these different places. So this poem is called Uncharted Territory of Grief. And just know that my aunties played a lot of Guns N' Roses, Beach Boys, Journey. So you might recognize some Journey references in this piece, but okay. Uncharted Territory of Grief. Summers meant sticking my arm out the back of a res car. No other windows rolled down. Consequences of a mechanic, some stranger's calloused hands left us with sticky summers, sweat dripping from our foreheads. I waved to make-believe friends and hungry ghosts. My arms danced against the wind, taking comfort in the resistance of warm desert air. The ghosts sang along as Journey's keys and bass blared through a battery-powered boombox. The car hugged the highway curves like a child holding its mom's hand, afraid to walk alone in the dark. Our grandmothers told us stories of the desert, how giant serpents laid on mountains to create canyons. Imagine earth crunching under the weight of unbearable sadness. Imagine what it feels like to collapse into an uncharted territory of grief. As young girls, we learned the tale of a mother who cried so many tears, she created a lake in the middle of the desert. Today, she sits in stone beneath a star-stitched sky, holding up the otherwise untethered blue. Last month, I read an orca gave birth to a female calf who died 30 minutes after entering our world. The orca carried her dead calf for 17 days, tethered by grief. Hers the price paid for love and loving. At 34, my sister gives birth to her first child, a winter-born boy. In recovery, my sister asks if she can walk yet. Her nurse says, wait until your legs are yours again. I wonder who and what I've carried and carry for days, months, for years. Grandmother, take me back to your childhood where you sang Blue Moon in boarding school, where you won the talent show. Take me back to 17 when my back first curved into an S, the serpent inside me coiled under grief, my scoliosis stopping any sports outside of prayers and inside dreams. I wish we'd had more time. Take me back to the day my fingers learned the blues until chords calloused their tips, the electric progression of Ain't Got No Home etched into my body's memory. Take me back to when we were all children given songs to sing. The ones you proclaimed were anthems, predictions for how we would love. Take me back to when we were all children saying, let's pretend. We'd yet to swim through grief. Our spirits hadn't been crushed by fists breaking through bedroom walls, and I could still hold your hand in the dark. Let's pretend our ghosts have been fed. Let's make believe our hearts are ours so we can walk again. Reverse the journey, play back the boombox, rewind the cassette tape to our favorite part where we all sing along to the na 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 nas until my lungs can remember what it's like to breathe in a world where you are still here and I'm still waving at ghosts through the back window singing, now it's your turn, girl, to cry. And so the last piece I'm going to share is actually a song, because in that poem, I had said, my grandmother winning the talent show, I had shared with you all that reference, but she also used to always sing this song called Ain't Got No Home. And when I was little, I thought it was just something she made up, and she would just sing like, ain't got no home. And she would do this little dance. And I was thinking, Grandma, you're so silly. And then, fast forward years later, and I have my job and my car and my fancy XM radio, and I'm listening to like the 50s or 60s station. And I hear this song by this artist, Clarence Frogman, and it's that song. It says, ain't got no home, no place to roam. I have no voice, I sing like a frog. And I called my sister and I was like, you remember Grandma used to sing that song? And she said, yeah. I said, she didn't make it up. I said, it's a real song. And when I looked at the lyrics, it just made me kind of sad, like, because she didn't have a home, she was taken from it. And I know that's something that she had felt a lot of her life, not belonging, not having that safe space, not having home. And when I think of my grandmother and her singing, I about when I first started taking guitar lessons, I was trying to learn some country songs. My grandma loved country. And I remember trying to play her one, and I said, I wonder where I got my voice. And that's when she said, you got it from me. And she was just telling me all those stories again. And when I think about it, I think for me, I love poetry. I love spoken word. I love writing. That will always be, I guess, maybe my longest relationship, my first love. But when I think about it, and I think what really makes my spirit come most alive, and feeling alive is what allows me to do this hard work that we need to do to help make the world a more just and equitable and braver space for us to all be free. For me, it's using my voice to sing. And for me, I was really lucky to grow up in ceremony, to grow up connected to some of these traditional life ways. And that's what makes me feel most alive. That's what ignites my fire. And if I had been braver, I would have studied that, or maybe gone to school for that. But poetry helped me find my way back. And so I'm just going to share with you all, to close out my piece, a song I wrote. It's actually the first song I wrote. I remember being in Alaska with some of my Indigenous artists performing, and we were just talking about a bunch of different things. And then I just was thinking about, just about all the different things that still are light, or maybe that try to hurt our spirits. And for some people, it can be substances or alcohol, or, when you black out, like what happens to you, where does your spirit go? And just hearing different people talk about these things, and that sometimes when life rocks you so hard, it can feel like maybe you lose yourself a little bit. And I've been very fortunate to hear different teachings from different nations where people talk about the importance of calling yourself back to yourself, saying your name out loud to yourself 4 times and calling yourself back. And that no matter what happens to us in our lives, like no matter who touches your body or hurts your body or your person, that nothing can ever touch or break your spirit. Your spirit is yours, your spirit is sacred. And how do you call yourself back when you feel like you need to? So this song is called Come Back to Me, and I'm going to share it, and I hope you like it. And I hope it doesn't lag. If the sound is lagging, you can just put in the chat. But so if anyone needs to call yourself back to yourself, this song is for you. I'm trying to find my place in
still holding so much hurt. I feel the weight of each wound's cries, the tears that fall try to hide my light. When you hear the darkness and it's coming for your heart, call sacred medicines you've carried from the start. Come back to me, come back to me, come back to me. My eyes were blinded by unhealthiness. Anything to fill this emptiness. I've stumbled and I've fallen over misplaced dreams, wanting a taste of something just to feel anything. When you feel the pain of trauma eating you away, call on your ancestors to return your strength. Come back to me. Come back to me. Come back to me. Come back to me. You get to find the pieces you thought you ever lost. Reach deep inside to call back your heart. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Tanaya. That was so beautiful, and what a wonderful way to call us all back to this space. We now have some questions for you both during this conversations with our performers or poets. And if we can start with a first question from the audience, and you both alluded to this earlier during your performances, but we'd love to hear about your practice, your writing practices. Where do you go? What inspires you? Perhaps how often? Any tools that you all may use, and anything that informs your practice.
I look at art making as serving my desire to be in conversation. So a lot of my stimuli, I've written in a couple of poems, the nightly news often is what is inspiration. Besides being in conversation with reality, I think that I try to serve what I like to call a 360 contextual view. So I like to frame things. A lot of my work is about memory. So I am trying to scaffold sometimes to leave breadcrumbs that this is a conversation I am having now, grounded by the nightly news and public discourse. But this is actually the continuation of a conversation that started a long time ago, or a conversation that many people are having. I finally learned, as a really young writer, I used to hate editors or people who would come and change things. And the most grievous thing a person could do is suggest that you don't need that part, because you see that messes with my 360 view. I want to tell you everything every time I open my mouth. But learning that writing for me, the strongest part of it is the rewriting, the going back over and shining it up. And so for me, I have developed a process that sort of looks like I get to throw up on the page. I get to serve that 360 view. It all is valuable. And so that creates then actually a place then from which to draw material, not the end product. I also think you don't throw anything away. So I have notebook after notebook with things that were started, not finished. A phrase, before we're off, something might get said, that a phrase, it suggests a question. So writing serves my own curiosity and allows me to be in conversation. And it's sort of a constant thing. I am writing even when I'm not writing. That's when I'm writing down those phrases or, this idea that I want to follow up. Although I can agree with my fellow guest about that ebb and flow between the difference between articulating and creating.
Yeah, I always feel like I've had such an interesting relationship with writing. When I was really lucky to be traveling all over, I could write anywhere, my airplane napkin, and things would come to me. I'd have my little journal, and I was just really felt like at the time, I felt like I was meant to be going to all of these different spaces and places because I would hear stories and see things and process it in my vessel and want to write it in some way. And then things have changed. I feel like I hope everybody goes. Well, I hope not everybody goes through this, but I also hope I'm not the only one who goes through this because I don't want to be alone. But having those moments like, am I a writer? Do I even like reading? Like, do I even like learning? Like sometimes I'll be so burnt out. I'll ask myself those questions like, do I even know how to learn? And that's when I know I'm just getting so burnt out because I've just been in these spaces where I'm asked to produce. And I always have to take a step back, like, the worldview, and just think, what am I writing for? And for me, I feel like now it's so much harder to access those spaces within myself that I used to write from before. And maybe that's a good thing. Maybe it means that those wounds have healed and I need to find other things, other landscapes to write from. I also feel like now it is getting more for me spiritual. I have such a hard time, and it's just tied. I feel like creating art, practicing it is so tied to your body, and for me, somebody who has a hard time being in my body, that's like what happens with my writing too. And so I've had one mentor say, well, how do you get in your body? For me, it's been running, it's been ceremony, it's been prayer. And so she suggested, well, why not pray and smudge right before you're writing? Because I like to empty myself, and I do believe I'm a vessel, other things that come into this world. And that's been the most helpful thing now when I'm having a hard time accessing those spaces. But I think just entering a new season of my life too, in my mid 30s, and maybe like 10 years from now, it will change again. It keeps transforming. And as somebody who doesn't like change, I'm just trying to look forward to that. Maybe it's symptomatic of good growth.
Thank you both. You both work with community in your different ways. You, Dr. Nzinga, I know that you work with theater, and you work in so many other platforms or spaces. with groups of people. And I know, Tanaya, you have your teaching and your workshops. And I just wanted to ask you both, how do you create those safe spaces where people who have experienced so much trauma, generational trauma, can come and be safe and express themselves meaningfully? So how can we create those safe spaces for people?
So allow me to trouble the waters a bit. I don't know if I ever feel safe. I think that safety has a big story with it's in a cover, it's really fancy, but the book's empty. The place where I heard the concept of being able to be safe the most was in a private MFA class in which I was the only Black woman. And often in conversation, we would need to shut down things because some of my colleagues felt unsafe. So this meant that there was almost no place I could take the entire trauma of me to unpack or to be the topic of discussion, to the point where one decides that because of the great desire for safety, then it is not a safe space to express not being safe. So you sort of pack all of your baggage in 2 bags and you explore things that are very surface that aren't going to change things. I wonder more about creating brave space, where people could say what I just said. I don't know about creating safe space because I never feel safe. And when I say I never feel safe, you know, we're off of a couple of years where Black women had gotten killed in their houses, in their beds, asleep. So I don't have an abusive thing going on in my house. I don't even feel safe at home. I often feel that I need to beware in public spaces. I think being a person of color in America, it's hard to feel safe. You just never know when the wolves will turn. And being a person of color, or any of the other intersections that we have, that we recognize ourselves by, but also our lines that are used to divide us, to cloister humanness into conquerable silos. Can we be brave in spaces? Can we hold trespassers who want to talk about things that maybe undo space? You know, how do we survive right now in this moment of liminalness, where things are extremely uncertain? You know, how much existential dread are we all walking with? Can we still be okay? So this requirement that people be safe, if I knew how to make people safe, I certainly would. You know, it's almost like asking, no, what heals? You know, and maybe the answer to both questions is the same. What heals is quit wounding. Stop wounding people, allow the scars to heal, allow them to bleed out the poison and to heal correctly, you know, with as little scar tissue as possible. Allow the story to be transformed. So that's my conversation about safety and safe spaces.
Yeah, I agree. I'm always trying to tell my colleagues, like, to make them change it from safe space to braver space. And I think for me, whenever if I'm leading a workshop, I always start it just with grounding. You know, if I'm with people I know we can pray, then I'll ask someone to pray. But if I'm not, which is more often what it is than what it's not, I just like to begin with breathing exercises or things to get us in our body to just take it back to being alive, because so much of the work in the things I try to do is about healing yourself first. So just getting in your body and in your space, and just think, and even just stretching, I'll just ask people to stretch wherever they're at. And I'm a very cheesy person, so I'll say, all right, we're gonna stretch in this workshop. So remember how good it felt to stretch your body, because other kinds of stretches can feel that good too. But for me, I feel like a lot of it is created, a lot of the hopefully space being created for acts of bravery happens through that storytelling, happens through being brave to be vulnerable, and just providing the space for people to share, and providing different ways for people to show up. One thing I miss all the in-person stuff, but one thing I love about Zoom workshops is, if you don't feel like using your voice today, you can drop something into the chat. You can write it into the chat, and if you don't want to show your face while you unmute and read, go ahead and turn off your, be as comfortable as you can, and I think giving people different agency in that way, I think helps. But one of the things I always share is just the story that comes from my mother's homeland, and it's about the creation of this lake created from tears. Because if I think, where have I felt the safest, it's probably swimming in that lake, which is interesting, because I'm a very fearful, anxiety driven person. You could literally drown, but I've always just felt so safe in that lake, and that's the lake I learned how to swim in. And I always tell the story, the Cliff's Notes version of this story is that, an original man and original woman had 4 children, and when they were little, the children got along, but as they got older, they kept bickering and arguing. They said, "You guys keep fighting, I'm gonna separate you." And sure enough, because as we humans do, keep bickering and arguing, so they said, all right, 2 of you go one direction, 2 of you go to the other. When you get there, light your fire so we know you're okay. And then after time passed, they see a fire lit in one direction, but they never see a fire lit in the other direction. And because the mother didn't know if her kids were okay, she cried so many tears, she created this lake made out of tears in the middle of the desert. And she turned to stone, and she sits watching over the lake. And I used to relate so much to that story because I've seen so much and experienced so much. I felt like I was too made of stone. Is that what I've inherited? I'm so desensitized. I can't even cry when you're supposed to cry. And I put a lot of my anger on the stone mother, on this story from my heritage. And then as I got older, I just continued to swim in the lake, visit as much as I can. And one time I was swimming, and I had gone through something that just broke me into pieces. And I was swimming, and I was floating on my back, and I just felt safe being carried by that water. And I thought, wow, that mother really gave us the greatest gift a mother could give. She gave us this tool for healing, for processing our trauma. Because if I believe the story, and I do, I'm literally swimming in tears right now. And ain't that a metaphor for life? We all swim through tears. And how do you not drown in it? How do you keep swimming? And if you're so tired from life pounding you with these waves and you can't swim, but you can tread water and figure out your next move when you're going to swim next. And if you are so obliterated by what life is throwing at you, you can't even tread water, you can float on your back and just breathe and figure out what you're going to do next. And I just felt so grateful. And I think about that story when things happen, and I share that story in every single workshop I give. But I also think about that story in a different way too. They wanted their kids to light their fire so they knew that they were okay. And I think each of our ancestors want us to light our fire so that they know we're okay, so that our people know we're okay. And so I encourage people to light your fire. Be brave enough to light your fire in this life, whatever that means for you. And in sharing that story, I encourage people to write about their fire and what it means to burn brightly. But that's the thing that I found that helps me in working with community is just sharing the stories of my people.
I love the water and the metaphor. Water is an anchoring point for civilization. The most beautiful metaphor in terms of joint humanity. We reflect the same amount of water inside of our human bodies is reflected on the planet itself, and it's essential for life. I love how you pointed at the swimming, the treading of water. I also think of the long suffering at the hands of colonization, the long arc of it. And I think about, again, the attempts at safety, the safe spaces in which we can come together and contemplate what in actuality is the total lack of safety for a group of people. The lack of a resting place. My lineage stretches across the largest graveyard in the world. The idea that I am in conversation with a woman whose people are homeless in their own home. The pain of those things. If there is no place to examine those sins, that pain, what it has cost us, the obscenity inside the word resilience. Resilience just means you have perpetually had to overcome things that threaten your survival. The brutality in fighting to have language which holds in it a worldview. The absolute violence in encouraging people to melt in a smelting pot as it was originally languaged. If there's no place for the appreciation of that pain and the cost of capitalism and systems fueled by hubris, if there's no place, if there's too much fragility in the world for that to be considered, then what of the people who endure it? And what are we really asking, you know? And you have to understand, we all in a circle together. It doesn't really matter how you choose to look at the circle. We're all in the circle together. And what you can do to the least of us in a system like capitalism will eventually happen to all. This game does not end until the next to the last bank buys the last bank, and everybody is fodder on the way. If we can't have those conversations, if we can't stop and have conversations about people talking about colonizing space, make my bones hurt. You want to do what with space? Hold on. Haven't we been here before? Does mankind actually get another planet if we fish out the blue ball? And we can't stop being a virus here. And what is the responsibility alongside the obscenity and being resilient? What is the responsibility of marginalized people? If it is not to process that pain, make it uber apparent, use it to wound even the drunken children pissing in the ocean. The planet is at stake. Tomorrow is at stake. The ability to be able to remember yesterday is at stake. So safety may be overrated until we get it right and until everybody gets to have it and experience it in the same way. Until then, I'm sorry, it's just some bullshit people like to kick around.
Thank you. Kat, do we have any questions from the Q&A from the audience?
Yeah, thank you so much. I think our audience is really appreciative and excited for our performers, our guests. They're wondering if our recording will be posted anywhere, which it will be. Please refer back to the CCBP events page, and folks can connect back with myself and Agnes for the recording from today. But other than that, Agnes, do we have any other questions or any final thoughts from Dr. Nzinga or Tanaya?
Well, I have one last question, I think, but it would have to be pretty quick, and then our poets can give us their last thoughts before we wrap up. And you know, this has been, I think, two of the most powerful hours of my life. I will probably be thinking about not just how I feel, but the ideas. There's so many amazing ideas and thoughts from your words. And this just kind of leads me to the idea of all the kinds of ways and things that we do at the university. And I just can't help but ask something about the humanities, because it's maybe the closest, I don't know, it's where we try to make sense the most and express what it is to be human. And I just wonder if you have any thoughts about the importance, I'm sure you do, of the humanities in a place like a university, in a time where everything seems to be so related to technology and money. Any thoughts?
Okay, I'll take a bite. They're banning books again. We are in a very polarized time where enough information to make an informed decision is at, that's the most valuable thing right now, having enough information to make an informed decision. If one assumes that people are basically good human beings and that no one wants to be wrong, then we assume that we make our decisions based on the information which we have. Somewhere, someone has to undo the idea of scarcity and the idea that university shapes generations of thought. That's the power of university. Now, to tell you the truth, from a North American, African perspective, my job in going through graduate school was guard my neck. It was the last chance for programming by a system that doesn't wish me well, by and large. But the institution has the potential to change thought for generations at a time. What would happen if the institution actually went on a critical examination of institution itself, how the institution of education is complicit in colonialism and in the programming of free thought, or thought that is liberatory thought? There's a saying, they'll never teach you how to free yourself. When did education stop being the leading out of people? Literally, that's what it translates out as. Could we get it back to that? And the institution of education, as I describe it, is also under attack, just like they're burning books. You know, we have professors like Cornel West, who can't open his mouth in peace for fear, you know, someone will smack him upside the head with the loss of tenure. The institution has to decide what side it's on. You either want to remake this status quo, and we do that in things like how we even talk about art. I talk about the industrial art complex that has genres like folk art and spoken word. How spoken word actually separate than poetry? Those are just really good poets who are also good at oral delivery. So, but when we call it spoken word, it actually separates it from poetry in a way that poetry is considered to be some higher form. Having a published book is somehow more literary than being able to recite the 500 names of God off the top of your head. Who makes that decision? The institutions that decide when movements end. I create and continue in the Black arts movement. Is it just convenient for that to be over with? And now we're in some other, who decides those things? So the institution is a double-edged sword. The challenge to the institution is does it want to move its moral arc towards good? I'm gonna leave my colleagues some time for that.
No, I love everything you said. I feel like I don't have much to add. And I'm so grateful just for you, Dr. Nzinga. I've learned so much, and just everything you've shared is just really hit deep. Yeah, I don't have much to add. I just agree. It is a double-edged sword. And I'm grateful that I went through it. But when I think about going back to now that I'm grown and know what I would want to study and I want to go back, like there's so much trauma there. I get anxiety just even thinking about going back to school. So I won't, but thank you for your words.
Okay, well, thank you so much. I do just want to pause and ask if our artists have any final thoughts, comments, words of wisdom for us before we wrap up our event today. No pressure.
I'm very grateful for having been invited. I love reading. I always think that my work has work to do. I'm very happy to have met your co-feature. I'm going to be reaching out to you. I do a speakeasy. You must come and read. This is nice. You can't get the word out unless you get about. So I appreciate being invited out. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you, everyone. And it's just been an awesome time. Like people have said, it's been a really great two hours or time. And I just, I'm so grateful to be here sharing space with you all.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Nzinga and Tanaya, for your powerful voices, your work, for sharing in this brave space with us, and to all of our participants, everyone who is able to join us today. We hope that all of you can come to more of our campus community book project events. Your feedback is also so important to us. So please complete this post-survey event. We have a QR code here or URL. And when you do, you'll be entered to win a ticket to see our book author during their campus visit, which will be on March the 31st. Again, we are so appreciative and glad that you all were able to join us. Have a great evening, and we hope to see you soon. Take good care.